Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome back, everybody, to another Sunday video. We are here every week setting up for the week ahead, trade setups, ideas, things that I'm looking at, etc. And I want to start none other than the crazy volatility that we saw on gold last week. We traded up to 1988, marking a high for the last several months, breaking even beyond where we were the highs of February when we had that nice solid run up to 1959. And guys, this is the thing about gold. If you trade gold on a regular basis, then you should absolutely know that gold has a tendency to make dramatic, sudden moves. And one of the most painful common mistakes that traders do when they trade gold is they bet against big moves. They try and say, hey, you know what, this thing's going to go lower. It's going to roll over. It's going to go, they bet that the market is going to reverse. When gold is something that in my experience and in my career as a trader, I've noticed that gold has a very high level, and I've done lots of back testing on this as well. Gold has some very explosive tendencies. It of course just absolutely moves in one direction very strong. So when I look at a chart like this, my first impression when I was a new trader would be to short this, to say, hey, this is too high. It's got to come down. I'm going to sell this thing because it's going to crash. That is what I used to think over and over. Nowadays, years later, lots of burned, experiences, getting burned, trying to short things like this. My opinion now is to look for moves like this to catch on the rebound, to actually bet in the direction of the dominant trend on a retest. So when I look at gold, my primary goal for this week is to look for the 50 or 61.8% retracements to be hit, which line up very nice with past levels of resistance where we saw sellers get sort of hold their own for a little bit. A retest of that area looks like a positive area to look to go long, in my personal opinion. Now, beyond just the gold chart price, which has been explosive in the last couple days, I also like it from the fundamentals and sentiment basis from the Edge Finder. By the way, feel free to pause the video if you want to see my top buys and top sells for the week based on the Edge Finder's data here. What I found very interesting is that we have a lot of sells relative to buys. Currently, you've got things like gold here as a possible buy. Now, I want to clarify that if you're newer to using the Edge Finder, this does not mean just go buy it outright just because it's showing a buy signal. It's the bias is a buy, meaning that on pullbacks, on technical setups, you may want to consider this because of all of the different metrics that we study. So across the top of the screen for the newer traders, the way to read this graph that you're looking at is that COT data, retail sentiment, seasonality, trend reading, GDP, inflation, unemployment, and interest rates are all taken into account, and a score is punched out. The higher the score, the more bullish the indication. It's not a signal to go buy it right out of the gates. It's more of a fundamental and sentiment scanner. Anyways, gold has a positive buy of 5 right now, and it's scoring high in areas like COT data, retail sentiment, seasonality, a strong upward trend, GDP, and unemployment favor bullishness for the gold market. And this signal popped up about a week and a half ago. I don't have any gold trades open. I missed a retest by a narrow margin before the trade moved on without me. So I was a little bit bummed about that, but I'm looking still for pullback opportunities on this. And going off of that, what I mentioned about retail, remember when I talked about briefly in this already, the fact that as this chart goes up, retail traders like myself, when I first got started, I'd want to short this thing. I'd want to say, hey, this thing's coming down, and so it's overextended. It's got to come back now. That's the way that a lot of retail traders think, as you can see, actually 86%, according to our data that we have in the software, is showing that retail traders are short. They're shorting. They're betting against this market as it trends higher. So that to me is actually a bullish signal. So even if we get that pullback, the opportunity lies on the long side, in my personal opinion. Now, let's go back to the Edge Finder and see if we can find something else here. So we've got USD CAD to talk about. USD CAD has also been really strong recently and still looks healthy in my personal opinion. Here's your 4-hour chart, and you can see you've got past level of resistance holding very well as support on the retest here and here. Now, we had a big shoot to the upside here this past week, fell back on the 4-hour basis, and in my personal opinion, still looks strong for a buy in this area. Should we see a return to the zone, I would say good chance we see this continuation to the upside. Now, I believe Frank is still long dollar CAD. Let me double check that and see if I can pull that up for you guys. So this is our Discord channel. Frank is my right-hand man. Him and I have been trading together for several years, as long as I've been been trading. Him and I have traded together for the last 7 years. And I think, yeah, so he is out of everything except for dollar CAD long. So Frank has been trailing a stop on dollar CAD long. He's been in it for a while, and really nice trading signal from him. If you guys aren't already inside of our Discord, you can see the trades being taken by myself, Frank, and Ivan. You also get access to chat rooms and all sorts of good stuff. So if you want to see our trades in real time, if you want to get notifications for when we are taking trades with full explanations and breakdowns, feel free to join us. The link is down below in the description. You can use code YTVIP to get access to our VIP signals and community. Also, if you like our software and you want access to it, there is a discount that you can get as well with that same code, YTVIP. The links for both will be down below in the description if you'd like to check out some of our software or our service within the Discord channel. So dollar CAD and gold both look interesting going into this week, but I also want to talk about some of the sell setups. Let's talk briefly about some of the US dollar related ones. You've got AUDUSD and EURUSD coming in as the strongest sell biased of the list. Let's go look first at EURUSD, as many traders pay attention heavily to the euro. Look at this. So my personal take, and this is, again, when I talk about this stuff, this is my opinion. It's not financial advice, all those good things. You guys know I'm here sharing my thought on the market, and I can be wrong. I've been actually pretty wrong recently. I've gotten a couple things wrong. So please don't just take my word as law or by any means. But my personal opinion is the euro looks like a sell area in these red zones. These levels mark key spots where the chart has sort of pivoted, right? And this is what I usually do with my charts, is I mark points where you can pretty much draw a V or an upside down V. And that's how I draw my support and resistance zones. It's really simple. I really don't go in too much detail with that. I do love using technical analysis, but I don't go super crazy in depth with technicals. A lot of my bias comes from, again, using real world factors that can really drive price beyond just what we see on a price chart pattern. So we have, however, some levels of resistance that I want to pay attention to, 1.069 and 1.074. These areas act as major resistance points. Looking back, we'll see if we can get some more continuation there. And again, my thought process on this is that here's your daily chart. You kind of had sort of a shift back to the downside direction. And if this does start to roll over again, my guess is we probably make a move down to this previous low and perhaps even beyond to the next level of support, which I've marked as this area here. Let me see if I can draw this in. And then also a deeper retracement off of this higher time frame. We did this once before. We marked the 50% retracement, which brings us all the way down to this key zone, which we stayed in for quite a while in November of 2022. So yeah, I think that if the euro trade starts to sort of unwind and starts to break structure, I think we make our way down to some of these levels here. As again, that upward trajectory kind of cracked back in February of this year. We've really sort of lost that steam that we had with the euro. And again, this week is a big week for news with the euro, so as well as the dollar. So it is likely causing some serious volatility going into this week. So we'll see if my idea here can play out, if we can start to see a rollover effect. And a key point would be a break of this low, right? So if we come down into these lows, that's great, but can we really get the breakout? That would be something really interesting to pay attention to in my personal opinion. Let's take a look at the S&P 500 here for a moment. And I mentioned that, sometimes people will say, hey, the edge finder is saying a sell signal, and yet you're saying it looks bullish. Well, there's a couple different things. When we take a look full view of the way that we trade here using the edge finder as well as charts, there's three components, and the regular viewers will know exactly what I'm going to say. You have technical analysis, you have fundamental analysis, and you have sentiment analysis. Now, sentiment analysis and fundamental analysis are not commonly used by retail traders. Retail traders, they love their technicals, and there's nothing wrong with technicals, but that's the popular thing to do, is to look at charts and to make all the decisions based on what a chart is saying. And like I said, I'm not bashing that, but I think that there is something valuable in these areas that traders completely ignore. So when we look at fundamental analysis, and fundamentals say the S&P 500 looks bearish and ugly right now, I would avoid getting long. That could give us a bearish reading. Now the technicals maybe tell us bullish, right? We had a breakout here. We're retesting into the 50. And sentiment analysis is another thing we'd have to check as well on the Edge Finder. We can get that data and check that. But the point is, I like to see things mutually agreeing, right? So if I'm looking at this chart and I'm saying, well, technicals look bullish, and let's assume fundamentals looked bullish and sentiment analysis looks bullish, then I might actually have grounds for a long trade. Regardless, we had a breakout to the upside there. It was a strong move for the S&P 500. I'll be watching to see if this thing can rally further. Is it possible that we start to switch bullish? Well, let me see what would need to be what needs to happen in order for that to occur. Let's go to indices and we'll go to S&P 500. The problem is a lot of the fundamental factors are still pointing towards bearishness. You have rate hikes coming down. Until we see that sort of flip, that's going to continue to be a bearish press on the S&P. You also have GDP growth, unemployment numbers, these things pointing towards bearishness. Inflation on the decline, that's a positive, but we'll see if that stays the case with the recent money printing that's gone on. You've got, again, a -6 overall, pointing very heavily on the fundamental side for sells. You also have a downward trend overall on the daily chart right now. COT data still sketchy with institutional money still very heavily on the short side, and retail sentiment about 50-50 doesn't give us too much to work with. So that's kind of how we analyze a chart like this. So this is something where there's just a mismatch between what I would call a technical breakout to the upside, but it doesn't match up with the fundamentals and sentiment analysis that we just viewed. So this would be a no trade scenario for me. I know that was long and drawn out, but that's how we would discredit a trade from there. Now here is the USDJPY currency pair. And the dollar yen has been something I've been struggling to try and catch along. I am at the bottom point of where I am trying to see if this thing can hold. If this level breaks, if the 61.8% retracement level breaks, then my idea on the dollar yen bullish setup is sort of done. We'll be out of this if this one breaks through the lows. If we come lower, then this idea is probably nullified. My thought process with this, with the dollar yen, is that we had this big break to the upside. We've pulled back pretty substantially within this past couple weeks, more so than I expected even. And when we hit the 61.8 and rallied off of this with such conviction, I figured, hey, we might actually be going back up. Quite the contrary, bank fears resurfaced and we came back down. So we'll see if the market can pull a push off of the 61.8. I'll stay in my idea to be long, but otherwise I'll probably move on and find something else to trade. That is dollar yen. Again, we'll watch that one closely this week as well, as we have a lot of news coming in to this week. I want to show you guys the Smart Money Tracker. Here's an updated view. And what we can see here is that when we look across the screen here, oh, someone's playing PUBG. Sorry about that. Anybody play PUBG? Let's see. If I'm looking at things like US30 and the SPX, this is your, and the NASDAQ, these things are pretty heavily short biased by institutional traders. You can see US30, SPX, NAS100, very heavily short. Then you have things like gold, very heavily long from institutional traders. You also have the dollar over there. You also have the euro, and you have NZD, which is a curious one, sort of poking up. Not nearly as interested as the euro and such, but you still have 57% long on NZD. Maybe that's an interesting one to pay attention to, see what's going on with some of the NZD crosses. NZDJPY, look at all the volatility there. These spikes were absolutely crazy in the last week or so on the yen. NZDJPY, kind of an ugly daily chart, I'm not gonna lie. NZDUSD, however, probably had a good day. Yeah, you can see a little bit of a push to the upside there. Yeah, you've got a little bit of momentum shifting to the upside here for NZDUSD, partially in tandem with the stock market. We know that NZD tends to have some risk-on characteristics, meaning in often cases it follows what the stock market is doing as people move money into more speculative currencies like this. At the same time, they might move money into something like the stock market, which is inherently more risky. So yeah, an interesting thing here to see NZDUSD making a breakout to the upside there. So let's see, what else do we have? I want to show you guys some other things here. Seasonality wise, as we are going into the final 10 days of March, we still have some things to pay attention to. The euro is expected, we haven't seen this yet, the euro is expected in March to decline, historically speaking. that is the case in the last 5-year average and the last 10-year average. So when we talk about the dollar across the board, we've noticed a lot of bullishness in the month of March historically. Will that play out? We'll see. Here's pound USD, for example, same sort of story. You've got decline expected there. You've got GJ, some of the pound yen crosses the pound yen cross is expected to slightly decline in March with a big rebound in April. So kind of interesting. And again, if you have access to the Edge Finder, just go over to the seasonality tab. You can play around with this, pick whatever assets you like. Here's dollar yen, for example, expected to rise in March and in April, historically speaking. So kind of an interesting one to check out there. The S&P 500, always an interesting one, slightly negative in the month of March. Very, very curious to see that is actually playing out as forecasted going into this month. It seems like the S&P 500 has had a tough month with all of the fear surrounding bank collapses and bank runs and stuff like that. So yeah, very, very interesting. We also just recently added some cool stuff with the economic figures. You can take a look, full view of like GDP in more detail, inflation data, which is a really popular one. You can see inflation comparing all the different currencies. As we know, these economic figures are very, very important when trying to sort of decipher strong or weak currencies to buy or sell. Unemployment data and also interest rates. We have all sorts of stuff to look at there. And of course, all of our different factors here, all of our different charts that you can take a look at. Remember, guys, if you want access to the Edge Finder, the link is down below in the description, and you can join us in our Discord if you want access to that. Both will be available down below in the description. Thank you guys for tuning in to another video. Have a great trading week ahead, and we'll see you next time.